Hello and welcome to getting started with the SOFiSTiK Bridge and Infrastructure Modeler. In this video, I will show you how to create your axis directly in Revit. The axis that we are going to create is going to be 100 meters long. Along the stationing of the axis, we want to have 4 placements, 4 points where something is happening along the axis. They are going to be positioned at 0 meters, 10 meters, 50 meters, and 80 meters along the stationing of the axis. The axis itself is vertically positioned at 6 meters. This is also a specific input that we can easily implement. Here we are now in Revit. I'm gonna get started by creating a new project file. I will use the standard construction template from Revit to do so. Once the program loaded in the project template, you will see a screen something like this, where we have the plan view selected. I want to go up here, click at this little house, which will create and open up my default 3D view. Additionally, I will change my properties to be on this side, as well as my project browsers to be on the right side. Here we are now in Revit, and I do have my levels already represented here. No worries, we will not need to adjust them for the Bridge and Infrastructure Modeler workflow. To get started, I will move over to the SOFiSTiK Bridge and Infrastructure Modeler tab. This interface always works with the typical SOFiSTiK logic of working from the left to the right side within this workflow, meaning that we will get started by the axis, create superstructure, substructure, and then create shop drawings. Let's get started with the axis. You can see in the drop-down that we have a multitude of options to create and modify axis. We will get started by creating manually a new axis. I click the button and this nice little interface shows up. First up, what is important in this interface? We will modify the alignment and start by giving it horizontal information. We can tell the program where to place this axis in relation to the origin point of my project, shared parameters or internal parameters. I can press F1 at any stage here to open up the SOFiSTiK online documentation. This is true for all the different functions that we have in this app, which allows us to easily read up on the different functionalities that are implemented by the software. Meaning whenever you are wondering, okay, what could this mean? You can simply press the F1 key to get additional information. I will change the coordinate system to shared. The origin point X and Y is set to 0. I could also change the direction at start. What does this do? This is a vectorial input, meaning if I set it to 2 equal values, it will create an offset of 1000 and 1000 to create a triangle which describes my direction here. A preset input of something in X direction and 0 in Y direction will give us a horizontally aligned axis. I could already predefine a station at the start and set an ID to my axis. Down here you can already see that the curve types for the horizontal alignment is already preset for a line, a clothoid, and an arc. I could add additional definitions in here by simply clicking into this empty field down here, and here you can now also see all the different inputs that are possible, like line, arc, clothoid, plus curve, and so on. I can select one of these lines and delete them by clicking the delete button to reduce the input that I have for the axis alignment to a simple line. Remember, we want to have a 100 meter long line as a definition for our axis. You can see here the length input is set to 30,000. This is because the construction template has a preset for length parameters as millimeters. I will change this very quickly to 100,000 And you can see in the preview up here that the change is immediately implemented. As for now, I want to save my changes by clicking OK. And we can immediately see that the axis is created in the three-dimensional system of my project. But all we do here is create complex Revit information, like you can see here that this axis is actually a native Revit family generic model, which means that we can modify all these inputs by managing our inputs from Revit. For example, I don't want to have my length input to be in millimeters, I want it to be in meters and also display the unit. I can go to Manage, Project Units, and in here, Revit now lets me change the length input from millimeters to meters with, let's say, 3 decimal places and representing meter as a unit symbol. Click on OK, OK, and I can now come back to the SOFiSTiK Bridge tab, Axis, and edit my existing axis by selecting it here. You can see that the input for my length parameter changed from 100,000 millimeters to 100 meters. We are now done with our horizontal input. We want to change our vertical alignment input. We could simply set a base elevation to the whole axis by inputting the value here, or I can give station specific height input. Again, our axis is 100 meters long, so I can select station 0 and station number 100, and now give it specific values at these stations. Again, the rule is I can double click into the empty field to create new station inputs. I could, for example, select 50 meters here and give it a different curve type, for example, a circular arc, where I of course also have to add a radius. Let's select something rather narrow, and you can see the preview of the created curvature. Just as an example, again, as for our little test example, it's only going to be 6 meters high, which means that I can get rid of this line again. So far, so good. Next up, we want to create placements. What are placements? Placements are specific points along the axis that the SOFiSTiK Bridge and Infrastructure Modeler app uses to specify complex inputs. We want to have our 4 placements, which go from 0 to 3. And the first one is at station 0. I want to have another one at station 10. This one I want to change to 50 meters. And the last one to 80 meters. I can also give these placements specific types. Those types don't have a specific role apart of you, the user, knowing what's happening at this placement, meaning it's simply additional information. For example, we will use station number 0 as an axis in the beginning, meaning there is nothing happening in the beginning, it's just 10 meters of access of my axis. Now I can click on OK, and the program will immediately update our axis. You can see our stations are represented on our placements. And if we take a look from the side, we can see that the axis alignment is now above the 4 meters, meaning at 6 meters. Alternatively, to manually input this axis, we can also use external sources to input the axis information. For example, from Civil 3D as a LandXML file. To get both axes in here, I will modify my original one. By the way, you don't always have to click on SOFiSTiK Bridge and Infrastructure Modeler to modify your axis. You can simply select the axis and click up here to edit it as well. And what I want to do is I want to give it an horizontal offset of, let's say, 20 meters in Y direction. And this is now something that you don't necessarily have to follow, just if you also downloaded the LandXML file. But now what I want to show you is the axis import function. This import functionality opens up a specific folder and allows you to select a specific file type. In this case, you can see we have LandXML, we also have text or CSV and other external formats. But the one that I want to select is LandXML, meaning Civil 3D. You can see here I already have my concrete bridge XML file on my desktop. Click on OK. And then this import interface opens up. It allows me to select the positioning of this external axis. And you remember from manually creating the axis, we can select by shared site. We can even acquire the assigned coordinates from this external axis. If this axis were to already exist in Revit, we could update this axis if there were changes in the LandXML file or in the Civil 3D file. And I can also tell the program which range of the axis to be imported. Once I click on OK, the new axis is created according to the input that we gave to this input dialog. You can also see that this external axis is aligned to 6 meters and it already has a length of 100 meters. The only thing that is missing compared to our manually created axis is the placement information. So I select the axis, click on Modify, and you can see here, shared site. The direction at the start has a value in X direction and 0 in Y. So again, this is a vector. The vertical information is 6 meters, 6 meters. The only thing missing are my placements. And I can just very easily change the first placement with ID 1 to 10 meters, create a new one at 50 meters, and a new one at 80 meters. I change the type to axis in the beginning and support. I click on OK. And now I do have an externally input axis, which fits the original requirements of our manually input axis. We will keep working with this one and I can get rid of the other one. I can simply delete it because, again, we are working in Revit. We are using native Revit geometries, which allows us to also use native Revit commands like deleting the geometry. Thank you for watching this video. In the next video, I'll show you how to create your superstructure. See you there.